Betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet look, a forgotten word, or a celebration that never happens. My name is Eleanor Davis, and for over 7 decades, I was the invisible glue holding my family together. I never imagined that the people I loved most would one day turn their backs on me, especially on the day that meant so much. But when your whole heart is invested in your family, and they leave you behind without a backward glance, something cracks deep inside. I didn't collapse. I didn't rage. Instead, I watched, I listened, and I learned. Before we dive in, let me introduce myself once again. I'm Eleanor, and this is the story of how I went from being abandoned on my 75th birthday to building a bakery empire from my tiny kitchen. Tell me, where are you watching from? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a chapter of this journey. Now, let's begin. I woke up that morning with the same flutter in my chest I'd had on every birthday for 75 years. The difference was, this time, I truly believed they remembered. They'll be here by noon, I whispered to Richard's photograph on the nightstand. Linda said she'd bring the grandchildren. I spent the morning baking my famous chocolate chip cookies, the ones Jessica used to beg for when she was little, the ones Tommy still asked about every Christmas. The kitchen filled with that warm, sweet smell that had always meant love in our house. By 2 o'clock, I was sitting at the dining room table staring at the empty chairs. The cookies sat untouched on their pretty plate, the coffee growing cold in the pot. Maybe they're just running late, I said to the silence. 3 o'clock came and went, then 4. At 5:30, I finally heard footsteps on my front porch, and my heart leapt. Martha! I opened the door to find my neighbor holding a small wrapped gift. Happy birthday, Eleanor. I brought you something. Martha's eyes swept over the dining room, taking in the untouched spread. Oh, honey. They're just delayed, I said, but the words tasted like ash. Eleanor, sit down with me. Martha guided me to the couch, her weathered hands gentle on my arm. When was the last time any of them called you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Linda called last week to ask if I could watch Tommy while she went to Jessica's college orientation. And before that? The silence stretched between us like a canyon. They're busy, Martha. Linda has her real estate business, and Robert's divorce was finalized last month. Jessica's starting her sophomore year. Eleanor. Martha's voice was firm but kind. When was the last time they asked about you? Not what you could do for them, but how you were doing. I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. My throat felt tight. I made cookies, I whispered. I know you did, sweetheart, and I bet they're delicious. Martha unwrapped her gift, a small potted orchid. This is for you. Not for anyone else, just for you. After Martha left, I sat alone in my kitchen, the cookies still cooling on their racks. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through social media, something I rarely did. There it was, Linda's Facebook post from 2 hours ago. A picture of her, Robert, Jessica, and Tommy at some trendy restaurant downtown. The caption read, "Family lunch. So blessed to have these amazing people in my life." I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't even mentioned. I set the phone down and looked around my kitchen. The same kitchen where I'd baked birthday cakes for Linda's sweet 16, where I'd packed lunches for Robert's Little League games, where I'd taught Jessica to make cookies when she was 8 years old. 75 years, I said to the empty room. 75 years. And this is what I get. But I didn't cry. Something inside me felt too hard for tears. like a stone settling in my chest. I wrapped the cookies in foil and put them in the freezer. Then I sat in Richard's old chair, the one that still smelled faintly of his aftershave, and I watched the sun set through our kitchen window. The house felt different somehow. Quieter, but not in a lonely way. In a waiting way, like something was about to change. I just didn't know what yet. The next morning, I found myself standing in the hallway, looking at the family photos that lined the walls like a museum of my life. There I was at Linda's graduation, beaming with pride as I handed her the check for her down payment. There was Robert's wedding photo. I'd paid for the flowers because his first wife's family couldn't contribute much. I was always there, I murmured, touching the glass over Jessica's high school graduation picture. Always. I remembered that day clearly. Jessica had been accepted to 3 colleges but couldn't decide. She'd called me crying at 2 a.m. Grandma, what if I make the wrong choice? What if I'm not smart enough for any of them? I'd driven to her house at dawn with fresh muffins and spent the entire day helping her make pro and con lists for each school. When she finally decided on State University, I was the one who helped her fill out the financial aid forms. You never even said thank you, I said to her picture. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Linda's name flashed on the screen. Hello, sweetheart. Mom, I need you to watch Tommy this weekend. I have 3 houses to show, and Robert's useless with babysitting. No apology, no acknowledgement of yesterday. Just another request. Linda, yesterday was my birthday. A pause. Oh, right. Sorry, Mom. I've been swamped. You know how it is. Do I? What's that supposed to mean? I looked at the photos again, at all those moments where I'd been the giver, never the receiver. Nothing, dear. What time do you need me to watch Tommy? Can you pick him up Friday after school? I'll get him Sunday night. After she hung up, I called Robert. Hey, Mom, what's up? How are you doing, son? Oh, you know, same old, same old. Work's been crazy since the divorce. Actually, I was wondering if you could loan me a couple $100. The lawyer bills are killing me. Robert, do you know what day it was yesterday? Another pause. Was it important? It was my 75th birthday. Shit. I mean, sorry, Mom. I've been so scattered lately, with everything going on. I understand. But I didn't. Not anymore. I'll transfer the money to your account. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I'll make it up to you. I promise. But he wouldn't. I knew that now with a clarity that surprised me. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down everything I'd given them over the years. Not to be petty, but to understand how I'd become invisible in my own family. Linda's college tuition, $40,000. Her wedding, $15,000. Down payment on her first house, $25,000. The list went on and on. Robert's expenses after his divorce, $8,000. Child support when he was between jobs, $12,000. His car repair last year, $30,500. For Jessica, summer camps, school trips, her laptop for college, spending money when she couldn't find a job. For Tommy, baseball equipment, art supplies, the bicycle he'd wanted for his birthday. The numbers were staggering, but it wasn't really about the money. It was about the pattern, me giving, them taking, no one ever asking what I needed. I looked around my kitchen at the outdated appliances and the wallpaper that was older than my grandchildren. When was the last time I'd bought something for myself that wasn't necessary? When was the last time anyone had asked what I wanted? The house felt different again, like it was holding its breath. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the gathering dusk, surrounded by the ghosts of all the birthdays I'd celebrated for other people. Tomorrow I decided I would bake, not for anyone else, just for me. A week passed in relative quiet. I'd picked up Tommy as promised, and we'd spent a peaceful weekend together. He was the only one who seemed to notice that something had changed. "Grandma, are you okay? You seem different." "Different how, sweetheart?" "I don't know. Quieter, I guess, but not sad quiet. More like thinking quiet." "Smart boy." He got that from his grandfather. I was thinking. About everything and nothing. About the life I'd built and the life I'd given away, piece by piece. Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was in a group chat I didn't even know I was part of. Linda, Robert, and Jessica. Linda: "We need to talk about Mom. She's getting needy, and I'm tired of her constant demands." My heart stopped. Robert: "What do you mean?" "She hasn't been calling me much lately." Linda: "Exactly. She's being weird and clingy. Yesterday she actually asked me about her birthday like I'm supposed to keep track of every little thing." Jessica: "She's getting old, Mom. Maybe we should look into assisted living or something. Get ahead of the problem before it becomes a real issue." Linda: "Good point. We should probably start dealing with her estate stuff, too. I doubt she's organized any of it, and we'll be stuck cleaning up the mess." Robert: "Should we have a family meeting about it?" Linda: "Let's wait until after the holidays. I don't want to deal with her drama during my busy season." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. They were talking about me like I was already dead. Like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the kitchen table. I sat there for a long time, feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. When Martha knocked on my door an hour later, I was still sitting in the same position. "Eleanor, I saw your car in the driveway and wanted to check." She stopped when she saw my face. "What happened?" I showed her the messages. Martha read them twice, her expression growing darker with each word. "Those ungrateful little—" She caught herself. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry for them, Martha. Be sorry for me, for wasting so many years thinking they cared. What are you going to do?" I looked around my kitchen, at the mixer I'd inherited from my own mother, at the recipe cards yellowed with age and splattered with decades of love. "I'm going to bake," I said. "Bake? Remember how you always said I should sell my cookies at the church bazaar?" Martha nodded slowly. "Well, maybe it's time I stopped giving them away for free." That afternoon, I deleted myself from the group chat without responding. Then I went to my recipe box and pulled out every single card. If my family thought I was just an old woman with nothing to offer, I was going to prove them wrong. I started with my chocolate chip cookies, the ones that had never lasted more than a day in any house I'd brought them to. As the kitchen filled with that familiar warm smell, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. The kitchen became my laboratory. Every morning I woke up with a new recipe to try, a new combination of flavors to explore. I made detailed notes about everything: temperature, timing, which ingredients worked best together. "Grandma, what's all this?" Tommy found me surrounded by cooling racks and notebooks when he stopped by after school. "I'm experimenting," I said, pulling a tray of lemon bars from the oven. "Try this, and tell me what you think." He bit into the bar, and his eyes widened. "Holy cow, Grandma. This is incredible. Better than the bakery downtown?" "Are you kidding? This makes their stuff taste like cardboard." He grabbed another piece. "What's in these?" "Fresh lemon juice, real butter, and a secret ingredient I won't tell you about until you're older." Tommy laughed. "Why are you making so many different things?" I hesitated. How do you explain to a 15-year-old that his family thinks you're worthless, so you're trying to prove them wrong? "I'm thinking about selling them," I said instead. "Really? You should. People would totally buy these." His enthusiasm was infectious. For the first time in weeks, I smiled genuinely. "Martha suggested I try the church bazaar next month." "That's perfect. Can I help?" I looked at my grandson. Really looked at him. When had he grown so tall? When had his voice gotten so deep? I'd like that very much. We spent the next 2 hours baking together. Tommy was surprisingly good at it, patient with the measuring and careful with the timing. As we worked, he chattered about school, his friends, his plans for the future. "You know," he said as we rolled out sugar cookie dough, "Mom's been really stressed lately." "Oh? Yeah. She keeps talking about money and responsibility and stuff. I think she's worried about taking care of you when you get really old." I paused in my rolling. "What do you think about that?" Tommy shrugged. "I think she's crazy. You're like the most capable person I know. Plus, you make the best food on the planet." Out of the mouths of babes. The next day, Martha came over with news. "I talked to Sam Patel at the grocery store. You know Sam. He owns the little market on Elm Street." I nodded. "I mentioned you might be interested in selling baked goods, and he said he'd be willing to try a few items, see if his customers like them." My heart started racing. "Really?" He said start small, maybe a dozen cookies or some muffins. If they sell, he'd be open to a regular arrangement. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling. It felt terrifying and exciting at the same time. For so many years I'd poured all my energy into my family. The thought of putting myself out there, of risking failure or rejection from strangers, made my stomach flutter. But what was the alternative? Sit around waiting for my children to remember I existed. The next morning, I baked 2 dozen of my best chocolate chip cookies and packaged them in clear bags with simple labels I'd printed at home. Eleanor's Kitchen, made with love. Sam smiled when I walked into his store. "Mrs. Davis, Martha, told me you might be stopping by." "I hope this isn't presumptuous, but I brought some samples." Sam opened one of the bags and took a bite. His eyebrows shot up. "Mrs. Davis, this is exceptional. How much are you charging?" I don't know. What do you think is fair?" "These are better than anything I get from my wholesale bakery. I could easily sell these for $3 a bag." $3 for cookies I'd been giving away for free my entire adult life. "Let's try 12 bags this week," Sam said. "If they sell, we can talk about expanding." I walked home in a daze. By the time I reached my front door, I was grinning like a teenager. "Richard," I said to his picture that night, "I think I might have just started something." The cookies sold out in 2 days. "Mrs. Davis, I need more," Sam called me Wednesday morning. "I had customers asking if you make other flavors." "Other flavors? Oatmeal raisin, maybe? Or those lemon bars your neighbor mentioned?" I found myself laughing. "I can do that." By Friday, I had established a routine. Mornings were for baking, afternoons for packaging and labeling. I bought proper containers, invested in a label maker, and even created a simple logo. Just my name in elegant script with a small whisk underneath. Tommy started coming by every day after school, officially appointed as my taste tester, and unofficial business advisor. "Grandma, you need to raise your prices," he said, reviewing my notebook where I tracked expenses and sales. "Why? People are buying them." "That's exactly why. If they're selling out in 2 days, it means they're too cheap. You could charge $4, maybe even $5. Smart boy. I raised the price to $4, and they still sold out. But success came with complications." Linda called Sunday evening, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Mom, Mrs. Henderson from church mentioned seeing your name in their newsletter. Something about baked goods?" "I've been helping with the bazaar preparation." "Since when do you help with church events?" "Since I decided to try new things." "What kind of new things?" "Mom, you're not making any big decisions without talking to us first, are you?" The nerve of her, as if I were a child who needed supervision. "I'm baking some cookies for local sale, Linda. Nothing dramatic." "Cookies? Mom, you can't just start a business. There are licenses and taxes and—" "I'm aware of the requirements, dear." A pause. "You researched business licenses." "I'm 75, not brain dead." "That's not what I meant. I just think you should have consulted with us before." "Before what? Before I decided to do something with my own time, in my own kitchen?" Linda's voice shifted to that patronizing tone I'd come to hate. "Mom, we just want what's best for you, starting something new at your age." "My age is exactly why I'm starting something new. Good night, Linda." I hung up before she could respond. The next morning, Martha found me in the kitchen at 6 a.m., aggressively mixing cookie batter. "Rough night?" "Linda thinks I'm too old to bake cookies for money." "Linda thinks a lot of things, most of them wrong." Martha poured herself coffee from my pot. A liberty that came from 40 years of friendship. "How are the sales going?" "Sam wants me to try some seasonal items. Pumpkin cookies, apple cinnamon muffins." "And how does that make you feel?" I paused in my mixing. Scared, excited, like I'm finally doing something that's mine. Martha nodded. "Good." "Is it normal to feel guilty about it?" "About what?" "About enjoying this more than I ever enjoyed their birthdays or holidays or family dinners." Martha was quiet for a long moment. "Eleanor, when was the last time any of them asked what would make you happy?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. "Then stop feeling guilty about finding your own happiness." That afternoon, Jessica called. "Grandma, I heard you're like selling cookies or something." "Something like that." "That's so cute. It's like a little hobby business." "Cute, a hobby. As if the 12 hours a day I was spending building something meaningful was just an old woman's whim." "How's school, Jessica?" "Terrible. I bombed my marketing exam, and I can't figure out what I want to major in. Everything's so hard." "What interests you?" "I don't know. Nothing, really. I thought maybe business, but it's so boring." I looked around my kitchen at the order forms I was organizing, the expense tracking, the customer feedback I was cataloging. Business can be interesting when it's something you care about. "Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I should go. Just wanted to say hi." After she hung up, I stared at the phone for a long time. My granddaughter was flailing in college, struggling to find direction, while I was building something real with my hands and my heart. The irony wasn't lost on me. By October, I was supplying 3 local stores and had a waiting list for custom orders. The church bazaar had been such a success that I'd been invited to participate in the town's Christmas market. "Mrs. Davis, you need to think bigger," Sam said when I delivered his weekly order. "Have you considered a website? Online sales? I'm 75, Sam. I don't know anything about websites. My nephew does web design. I could ask him to help you out. The idea terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Tommy had become my unofficial business partner, handling deliveries after school and helping with packaging on weekends. We'd developed an easy rhythm, working side by side in comfortable conversation. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you ever do this before? The baking business, I mean. I considered the question as I measured flour. I suppose I was too busy taking care of everyone else. Do you regret it? All those years? I regret that no one ever asked me what I wanted to do with my life. Tommy nodded thoughtfully. Mom asked me about you the other day. Oh. She wanted to know what you've been up to. I told her about the business. My hand stilled. What did she say? She got that look she gets when she's trying to control something. Then she asked if you were handling your finances responsibly. And what did you tell her? I told her you probably understand money better than she does, since you're actually making some instead of just spending it. I couldn't help but laugh. Tommy. What? It's true. You're like a successful entrepreneur now. It's pretty cool. The word entrepreneur felt foreign and wonderful on my tongue. But Tommy was right about Linda's look. She called that evening, her voice tight with barely controlled frustration. Mom, I think we need to talk. In person. About what? About this business venture of yours. Robert and I are concerned. Concerned about what? About you making impulsive decisions without family input. About tax implications. About whether you're being taken advantage of. Who exactly would be taking advantage of me? People who see an elderly woman with some money and think they can... Linda. My voice was sharp enough to cut through her patronizing tone. I am not an elderly woman being scammed. I am a businesswoman building something successful. Silence. We're coming over Saturday. All of us. We need to have a family meeting. I'll be busy Saturday. Mom, I have 3 dozen cookies to bake for the Hendersons' anniversary party, plus my regular orders. Saturday is a work day. A work day? Linda's voice dripped with dismissal. Mom, this has gone far enough. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. They were coming whether I liked it or not. They were going to try to make me small again, to stuff me back into the box labeled elderly mother who needs managing. But something had changed in me over these past months. The woman who had waited patiently for birthday visits that never came felt like a stranger now. I was earning my own money, making my own decisions, building something beautiful with my own hands. Martha found me Friday evening, stress baking my way through enough cookie dough to feed an army. They're coming tomorrow, I said without preamble. I figured. Your kitchen looks like you're preparing for siege warfare. Maybe I am. Martha sat down at my kitchen table, her expression serious. Eleanor, what do you want from this conversation? I want them to see me. Really see me. Not as an obligation or a problem to be managed, but as a person who has value. And if they can't do that? I looked around my kitchen, at the business I'd built from nothing, at the orders pinned to my bulletin board, at the life I had created for myself. Then I guess I'll know where I stand. They arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, Linda, Robert, and Jessica, filing into my living room like they were entering a boardroom. Tommy came with them, shooting me an apologetic look as he settled. Into the corner chair. Mom, we need to talk. Linda began without preamble. Good morning to you too, dear. Would anyone like coffee? This isn't a social visit. Linda opened a folder she'd brought with her, We're concerned about these business activities you've been engaged in." "What business activities?" Robert cleared his throat. "Mom, we heard you've been selling baked goods without consulting any of us." "Did I need to consult you about what I do in my own kitchen? When it involves potential legal and financial ramifications, yes." Linda pulled out printed pages. "Do you have a business license? Are you reporting income to the IRS? Have you considered liability insurance?" I looked at each of them. My son avoiding eye contact. My daughter wielding her folder like a weapon. My granddaughter scrolling through her phone as if this were beneath her attention. "As a matter of fact, I do have a business license. I am reporting my income. And yes, I have liability insurance." Linda's composure cracked slightly. "Since when do you know about business licenses?" "Since I decided to educate myself instead of remaining helpless." "No one said you were helpless," Robert interjected weakly. "Didn't you?" I stood up, moved to my desk, and pulled out my own folder. "Would you like to see my business plan? My profit and loss statements? My tax preparations?" The silence was deafening. Jessica finally looked up from her phone. "Wait, Grandma? You actually have, real business stuff?" "I have a real business, Jessica. Eleanor's Kitchen is registered with the state, insured, and profitable." "How profitable?" Linda's voice was sharp. "Profitable enough that I no longer need to depend on anyone for financial security." I opened my folder and spread the papers across the coffee table. Sales records, customer testimonials, orders for the Christmas market, a contract inquiry from a regional grocery chain. I didn't tell any of you because I wanted to see if I could do it myself. If I could build something meaningful without help or approval or interference. Robert picked up one of the customer letters. "Mrs. Davis, your cookies reminded me of my grandmother's kitchen and brought me so much joy during a difficult time. Mom, this is beautiful." "It is beautiful, Robert, and it's mine." Linda was studying the profit statements, her real estate agent's eye quick with numbers. "These figures. Mom, this is actually substantial income. Substantial enough that I won't be a burden on any of you as I age. Substantial enough that I can hire help if I need it, pay for care if I require it, and maintain my independence." "But why didn't you tell us?" Jessica asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely hurt rather than dismissive. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I'd missed before. Behind the entitlement and self-absorption was a young woman who was lost, struggling to find her place in the world. "Because none of you ever asked what I wanted to do with my life. You asked what I could do for you, what I could give you, how I could help you. But you never asked what would make me happy." Tommy spoke up from his corner. "I asked." "Yes, you did. And you're the only one who celebrated when I succeeded instead of questioning whether I was capable." Linda set down the papers. "Mom, that's not fair. We were concerned about you being taken advantage of." "By whom? Sam Patel, who's been buying groceries from the same families for 30 years? The church ladies who've known me since I was Tommy's age? Or maybe you were worried I was taking advantage of myself." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Linda? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you were concerned that your elderly mother might actually be capable of something you didn't control." The words hung in the air like smoke. Robert cleared his throat. "Mom, I think what Linda is trying to say—" "Robert, let Linda say what Linda means to say." My daughter looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Maybe it was recognition. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was just surprise. I meant that we've always seen you as someone who needed protection, someone we had to take care of. And now? Linda looked at the papers scattered across the table, at the evidence of my competence and success. Now I'm not sure what to think. The conversation that followed was unlike any we'd had as a family. For the first time in years, they asked me questions. Real questions about my goals, my plans, my dreams. "How did you learn about business licenses?" Robert asked. "I went to the library. I researched online. I called the Small Business Administration. You did all that yourself?" Jessica seemed genuinely amazed. "I'm old, Jessica, not incompetent." Tommy grinned from his corner. "Grandma's been crushing it for months. She's got regular customers who call asking when the next batch will be ready." "What's your long-term plan?" Linda asked, and I could hear her trying to shift from interrogation to consultation. "I want to expand gradually. Maybe rent a small commercial kitchen space. Hire some part-time help." I paused. "I've been thinking about teaching baking classes." "That's actually a really good idea," Jessica said. "You could charge for classes and sell ingredients, multiple revenue streams." I looked at her with surprise. "That's very good thinking." She blushed. "I have been taking business classes, even if I'm not great at them." "Maybe you're not great at theoretical business, but understanding practical applications, that might be different." Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Robert started offering ideas about marketing. Jessica suggested social media strategies. Even Linda began making helpful suggestions about local networking opportunities. "The Chamber of Commerce has a small business mixer every month," she said. "I could introduce you to some people." "You do that?" "Mom, Linda struggled with the words. "I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually. Oh, I think I've been treating you like an obligation instead of a person. And I think I've been scared of you getting older because I didn't want the responsibility. And now? Now I see that you don't need me to be responsible for you. You're perfectly capable of being responsible for yourself." Robert shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, I need to apologize too. I've been so wrapped up in my own problems that I forgot you might have dreams of your own." "What dreams, Robert?" "I don't know. That's the problem. I never asked." We talked until late afternoon. For the first time in years, I felt like they were seeing me as Eleanor, not just as Mom or Grandma, but as a woman with ambitions and capabilities. When they finally left, Tommy lingered behind. "That went better than I expected," he said. "It did, didn't it?" "Are you going to forgive them?" I considered the question. "I think forgiveness is a process, not a moment. But today was a good start." "Can I keep helping with the business?" "I was hoping you'd ask. I might need to start paying you officially soon." Tommy's face lit up. "Really? Like a real job?" "Like a real job!" After everyone left, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by the comfortable mess of a day's baking. The order forms were piling up, and I had 3 different people interested in wholesale accounts. Martha knocked on the door around 7 p.m. "How did it go?" "Better than I feared. Not as satisfying as I'd hoped." "What do you mean?" "I wanted them to see me and acknowledge me. They did. But I realized that their approval isn't what I was really seeking." "What were you seeking?" "My own approval, my own respect, the knowledge that I could build something meaningful with my own hands." Martha smiled. "And did you find that?" I looked around my kitchen, at the business I had built from nothing, at the independence I'd claimed for myself, at the future I was creating on my own terms. Yes, I said. I think I did. 6 months later, Eleanor's kitchen had outgrown my home. I rented a small commercial space downtown, hired 3 part-time employees, and started offering weekend baking classes that filled up weeks in advance. Tommy had become my official assistant manager, learning every aspect of the business while saving money for college. Jessica, much to everyone's surprise, had changed her major to business administration and was interning with me for the summer. "Grandma, the Henderson account wants to increase their weekly order to 5 dozen, she announced, checking our scheduling system on the tablet she'd convinced me to buy. "Can we handle that with current staffing? If we shift some of the prep work to Tuesday, yes." I watched her work, confident, capable, engaged in a way she'd never been with her college classes. "Jessica, have you thought about what you want to do after graduation?" "Actually, I have." She looked up from the tablet. "I was wondering if you'd ever consider taking on a business partner." The question caught me off guard. "A business partner?" "Someone to handle the business side while you focus on the creative side. Marketing, expansion, financial planning." "Someone like you?" "Someone exactly like me, if you'd trust me with it." I looked at my granddaughter, really looked at her. Somewhere in the past year, the entitled young woman had transformed into someone with focus and drive. It would mean working together every day. It would mean disagreements and negotiations and shared responsibility. It would also mean shared success and shared pride. "What does your mother think about this idea?" Jessica grinned. "She said it was the smartest thing I'd ever suggested. She also said she'd like to handle our real estate needs when we're ready to expand to multiple locations." "Multiple locations?" I laughed. "Let's master one location first." "Grandma, you're thinking too small. We could franchise this. Eleanor's kitchen could be everywhere." Her enthusiasm was infectious, but more than that, it was genuine. She wasn't humoring an old woman's hobby anymore. She was talking about building an empire. We'd need to discuss terms, I said carefully. "I've already drafted a proposal." She pulled out a folder that reminded me painfully of Linda's interrogation folder from months ago. But this one was filled with possibilities instead of accusations. 60-40 split to start, shifting to 50-50 as I take on more responsibility. I opened the folder and found detailed financial projections, market analysis, and expansion timelines. "Jessica, this is professional-level work. I learned from the best." "Your business professors?" "You, Grandma. Watching you build this from nothing taught me more about real business than any textbook." 3 weeks later, we had our first family dinner in over a year. Not because of obligation or emergency, but because we wanted to celebrate. I'd signed the partnership agreement with Jessica. Tommy had been accepted to State University with a partial scholarship he'd earned himself, and Robert had finally received his final divorce decree. "I can't believe my baby sister is going to be a business mogul," Robert said, raising his glass, to Jessica. "I can't believe our mother is a business mogul," Linda added, raising hers to me. The dining room table was full again, but everything was different. Instead of me serving everyone else, we'd ordered takeout from the new Thai place downtown. Instead of me asking about their lives, they were asking about mine. "So what's next for Eleanor's kitchen?" Robert asked. "We're looking at a second location," Jessica answered. "Mom's been scouting properties. And I've been researching franchise opportunities," I added. "It turns out there's quite a demand for authentic, home-style baked goods made by people who actually know what they're doing. Tommy looked up from his pad thai. Are you going to expand beyond baking? Like sandwiches or soups? We're considering it. What do you think? I think you should stick with what you're amazing at, but maybe add coffee. Really good coffee. Coffee's expensive to do right, Linda said. High equipment costs, training, supply chain management. But high profit margins if you do it well, Jessica countered. And it would increase customer dwell time, which means more impulse purchases. Listen to you two, I said, looking between my daughter and granddaughter. 6 months ago, you thought I was too old to sell cookies. Now you're debating expansion strategies. Linda had the grace to look embarrassed. I was wrong, Mom. About a lot of things. We all were, Robert added quietly. After dinner, as we cleaned up together. Actually together, not me doing everything while they watched. Linda pulled me aside. Mom, I need to say something. What's that, dear? I spent so many years worrying about taking care of you that I forgot you might not need taking care of. I forgot that you're actually stronger and more capable than any of us. I'm not stronger, Linda. I just finally had a reason to use my strength. What was the reason? I thought about that morning, 6 months ago when I'd read their text messages, when I'd realized I was invisible in my own family's eyes. I needed to prove to myself that I mattered, that I could build something meaningful, that my life had value beyond what I could give to other people. Linda nodded slowly. Did you prove it? I looked around my dining room, at Tommy designing business cards on his laptop, at Jessica reviewing vendor contracts, at Robert helping to load the dishwasher without being asked. I think so. But the funny thing is, once I proved it to myself, I didn't need anyone else's approval anymore. But you have it anyway. I have something better than approval, Linda. I have respect. From all of you. But more importantly, from myself. The next morning, I stood in my commercial kitchen at 5 a.m., just like I had every morning for the past 3 months. But instead of feeling tired or overwhelmed, I felt energized. At 75, I was finally living the life I wanted instead of the life everyone expected me to live. Tommy arrived at 6, right on schedule. Morning, boss. Morning, partner. We worked in comfortable silence, preparing for another busy day. The morning rush would start soon. Office workers stopping for coffee and pastries, parents grabbing lunchbox treats, elderly customers who came as much for conversation as for cookies. Grandma? Yes. Do you ever miss the old way? When you took care of everyone and didn't worry about profit margins and employee schedules? I considered the question as I shaped croissants. I miss feeling needed in that uncomplicated way, but I don't miss feeling invisible. You were never invisible to me. I know, sweetheart. You saved me. You know that? I didn't save you. You saved yourself. Maybe we saved each other. At 7 a.m. sharp, I unlocked the front door and flipped the sign to open. Mrs. Chen was waiting, like she was every Tuesday morning. Good morning, Eleanor. Do you have my usual? Chocolate chip cookies and a blueberry muffin, still warm from the oven. You spoil me. That's what good businesswomen do. We spoil our customers so they keep coming back. As Mrs. Chen left with her order, I caught my reflection in the front window. The woman looking back at me was still 75, still had gray hair and wrinkled hands. But her shoulders were straight, her expression was confident, and her eyes were bright with purpose. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I belonged. 1 year later, Eleanor's kitchen had 3 locations and a waiting list of potential franchisees. I'd been featured in the State Business Journal as Entrepreneur of the Year, and Jessica had graduated summa cum laude with job offers from companies across the country. She chose to stay with me. "Grandma, we have a problem," she announced, bursting into my office at the original location. "What kind of problem?" "A good problem. The grocery chain wants to carry our frozen cookie dough statewide, but it would mean industrial-scale production, quality control standards, distribution logistics. Sounds complicated, sounds profitable, but it also sounds like it might change what we are fundamentally." I looked at my granddaughter, my business partner, and marveled at how much she'd grown. Not just in business acumen, but in wisdom. "What do you think we should do?" "I think we should remember why we started this. It wasn't to become the biggest bakery company in the state. It was to prove that you mattered, that your skills had value, that you could build something beautiful. And have we done that?" "Grandma, look around." I did. The original location was bustling with customers. Linda sat in the corner booth, handling paperwork for our newest location. Robert was behind the counter helping during his lunch break, a weekly tradition he'd started months ago. Tommy was training a new employee with the same patience I'd once taught him. "We've built something incredible," Jessica continued. "But more than that, we've rebuilt our family. We've created jobs for 12 people. We've made thousands of customers happy. We've proven that starting over at 75 isn't just possible. It's powerful. So what's your recommendation about the grocery chain?" "I think we say thank you. But no, I think we stay true to what made us special in the first place." I smiled at her. "You know what, Jessica? I think you're absolutely right." That evening, I hosted my first official family dinner at my house in over 2 years. But this time, I wasn't cooking. Jessica brought salad, Linda brought wine, Robert brought dessert from a competitor's bakery, as a joke, and Tommy brought his girlfriend to meet the family. As we sat around the table, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. We weren't gathering out of obligation or tradition. We were gathering because we genuinely enjoyed each other's company. "Mom," Linda said as we were clearing dishes, "I have something to tell you." "Oh?" "I've been seeing a therapist, working through some things." "That's wonderful, dear." "One of the things we've been discussing is how I treated you. Before the business, I mean. How I made assumptions about what you needed instead of asking what you wanted. Linda, let me finish. I spent so many years preparing to take care of you that I forgot you were still living your own life. I robbed both of us of a real relationship because I was so focused on future obligations that I missed present opportunities. And now I see you as who you actually are, the strongest, most resourceful person I know. The woman who built a successful business from scratch at an age when most people are slowing down. I don't need you to see me as perfect, Linda. I just need you to see me as capable. I do. We all do. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and looked through the photo albums I'd neglected for months. There I was at all their graduations, weddings, celebrations, always in the background, always supportive, never the center of attention. But now there were new photos, pictures from the Business Journal article, photos of our ribbon cutting, ceremonies, images of me teaching baking classes, surrounded by eager students taking notes. In these new pictures, I wasn't in the background. I was front and center, confident and radiant. "Richard," I said to his photograph on the kitchen counter, "I think you'd be proud of what I've built." I could almost hear his voice. I was always proud of you, Eleanor. I just wish you'd been proud of yourself sooner. The next morning, I arrived at the bakery to find a line out the door. Tuesday mornings had become our busiest time, partly because of our Tuesday special, buy 2, get 1 free on muffins, but mostly because word had spread about the quality of our products and the warmth of our service. "Mrs. Davis," called Sarah, one of my regular customers, "I brought my sister from out of town. She doesn't believe your cookies are as good as I claimed." I smiled and handed her sister a still warm chocolate chip cookie. "Try this and tell me what you think." She bit into it, and her eyes widened. "Oh my goodness, this is incredible." "Thank you. Would you like to take some home with you?" "I'd like to take you home with me. Do you deliver to California?" Everyone laughed, but the question sparked an idea. Later that day, I called Jessica into my office. "What do you know about shipping baked goods?" "Not much. Why?" "I think we might need to learn." Within 6 months, Eleanor's Kitchen was shipping nationwide. We'd developed special packaging that kept our cookies fresh during transport, and we'd created gift packages that became popular for holidays and special occasions. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined that first morning, when I decided to sell my grief and frustration, 1 cookie at a time. But the real transformation wasn't in the business metrics or the revenue reports. It was in the way my family looked at me now, with respect, with admiration, with genuine interest in my thoughts and opinions. It was in the way I looked at myself in the mirror each morning, as a woman of value, a person with contributions to make, a force to be reckoned with rather than a burden to be managed. Most importantly, it was in the knowledge that I'd reclaimed my dignity not through confrontation or revenge, but through the simple act of refusing to be invisible. On my 76th birthday, the dining room table was full again. Linda, Robert, Jessica, Tommy and his girlfriend, Martha and her husband, Sam Patel and his family, some of my employees and their children, Mrs. Chen and several other regular customers who'd become friends. The house buzzed with conversation and laughter. The kitchen overflowed with food that other people had brought. A reversal that still amazed me. "Before we eat," Jessica announced, standing and raising her glass, "I want to make a toast to the woman who taught all of us that it's never too late to start over, never too late to demand respect, and never too late to build something beautiful." "To Eleanor!" everyone chorused. As I looked around the table at all these faces, some family, some friends, some customers who'd become both, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with redemption. I hadn't set out to punish anyone or prove anyone wrong. I'd simply decided to prove myself right. Right to take up space. Right to have dreams. Right to build something meaningful with my own hands. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't making people sorry for underestimating you. The best revenge was making yourself proud. "Thank you," I said, standing with my own glass. "All of you, for seeing me, for supporting me, and for reminding me that the most important opinion I needed to change was my own." Later that evening, as the last guests were leaving, Tommy lingered behind to help clean up. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you forgive them? Really forgive them for how they treated you before?" I thought about it carefully. I forgive them for not seeing my potential. I forgive them for taking me for granted. But mostly, I forgive myself for allowing it to happen for so long. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I spent so many years waiting for other people to value me, that I forgot to value myself. I gave away my power so gradually that I didn't notice it was gone until I was sitting alone on my 75th birthday. And now? Now I know that my worth isn't determined by how useful I am to other people. It's determined by how authentic I am to myself. As Tommy left, I walked through my house one more time, turning off lights and locking doors. The dining room still smelled like birthday cake and friendship. The kitchen still hummed with the energy of people who'd gathered to celebrate not just my birthday, but my transformation. I paused at Richard's photograph on the mantel. I did it, I whispered. I figured out who I was meant to be. In the photograph, his smile seemed warmer somehow, as if he were proud of the woman I'd become. The woman I'd always been, but had finally learned to see. Outside, the sun was setting behind the trees in my backyard. The same trees I'd watched through the kitchen window on that terrible, lonely birthday a year ago. But everything was different now. I was different now. At 76, I wasn't winding down or preparing to be taken care of. I was building, creating, leading, teaching. I was exactly where I belonged. And for the first time in my adult life, that place was entirely of my own making.